All right, take number 4. We tried the roof. This might be too windy to be doing up here. We tried dinner, it was too much. This is gonna be impossible, I'm not gonna be able to eat while I do this. And then I almost broke this box, so now I'm sitting on a chair, and my wife is directly below the camera right now, packing shirts. Any tips on social anxiety in the workplace? When I started at ABC Sports, I mean, this was always me. I've always been the quiet kid. I am an introvert by nature, even though I'm sure it doesn't look that way. And I remember this guy that was giving us a tour and kind of showing us around as we just got started. I think it was week 1. And he literally made a game out of whoever would ask the most questions. And for some reason that immediately got me to come out of my shell. And then once I started to ask one, it became contagious. It was like, oh, interesting. Now let me ask a follow-up question. And then I was like the runaway winner within the first 2 hours of this pseudo game that he put together. Don't be afraid of the 101 questions or the quote unquote dumb questions. I would guess that 90% of the time, the question that is in your head, everyone else is thinking, but nobody else has the chutzpah, so to speak, to actually ask the question. So you just kind of got to dive right in. Maybe just start with questions so that you get more comfortable engaging in conversation, and then that'll build up to you being more comfortable speaking, presenting, and then eventually advocating for yourself. But I would say about advocating for yourself, look, it's a bit of a downfall of mine as well, but I don't think it's held me back too much. It's okay, like let your work do the talking. And if you can become comfortable asking questions in meeting and comfortable presenting, that'll go a super long way. How do you stay focused in meetings? I have hours of meetings and my mind wanders. Mine too. Very normal. I don't like the feeling when my brain wanders and I've missed something that I could and should, especially based off what I'm supposed to do now, have to be tuned in enough to know like what the hell's going on and how to respond and how to be helpful. The way that I focus my brain is either by multitasking when I know that I can multitask, but then making sure that I'm engaged because I hate the feeling of, oh crap, what did they just say? Still happens, like nobody's perfect with that. I'm definitely not perfect with that, but give yourself a little bit of leeway. I think everybody's multitasking these days. Focus on how good it feels when you're engaged and you can help move something along because you're like, oh cool, I just heard that little nuance. It's like, can you geek out on the conversation? And maybe it helps. Elise Harper asks, I'm curious why you worked from the office during the lockdown. So how do I tell this story shortly? So my old boss left the company very suddenly right before the pandemic hit. So as you guys have probably heard me say 1,000 times, I run a 240 person creative department. That is part of about a 400 person marketing organization. When my boss exited the company very quickly, that left a huge void. And that was like right before the pandemic hit. And I really wanted his job. And I thought that it was without question within grasp. So that was part 1. And that went through probably May or so. And then at that point, based off of just a slew of things that were happening in the department at the time, it made the most sense. Also, Kelly was so cool in making it part of a routine that I think helped us overall. It made for just, a commute time that gave us something to do twice a day versus being in the house all day. It got Kelly and Evelyn out of the house twice a day. It meant that there was some sort of normalcy of going to work and coming home and talking about your day. So yeah, I think would you add anything to that, babe?
No, it's just nice family time that we normally wouldn't have together.
There you go. Nice family time we wouldn't have had together. And I think it also helped too, because my daughter being on Zoom for school, me being on Zoom all day, my wife trying to stream her classes, you have some bandwidth issues there too, and I think that would have been a bit of a bummer. But long story short, my boss exited the company shortly before the pandemic started. I basically was doing a lot of his job after he left, and I really wanted his job. I ended up not getting it, but I wouldn't have traded that for anything. Even the experience of not getting his job, which I'm happy to hit on deeper at another time. Silly Whim. Tim, what is your cheesiest dad joke? I really don't have any cheesy dad jokes. I default to being kind of the gross dad. Like I'll go more towards gas jokes and burp jokes and that kind of stuff. I don't think I've got a single bad dad joke. I'm just kind of the gross dad, I think. Kelly agrees.
100%.
100%.
And now we have the gross daughter.
Yeah, now we can have a gross daughter, which I'm happy for. How do you keep yourself from slouching? I have good Thank you. I actually think I've got bad posture. I think it's, you have no idea how self-conscious you become when you film yourself a lot and then you watch that and you're like, wow, that angle I look terrible in, and my teeth look awful here, and my posture's not great, and X, Y, and Z. So being cognizant and seeing a couple shots when your posture's not great, I've become so much more self-aware of that, and I'm glad for that because I see people slouching, I'm like, ugh. And the wobbly stool that I have at office helps a bunch because then I'm just cognizant all day long. I mean, I certainly lean and I still slouch, but long story short, it is because I watch myself a lot, because I kind of have to when you take your own clips and then you gotta edit it together. And I don't know, I don't feel like I'm slouching right now. All right, Pepinito. Curious as to how you film, edit these. Do you plan ahead, film ahead, love the content? Thank you, my friend. No, I have the worst content strategy because I really don't have a content strategy other than day in the lives either is one full rip or in the little episodes that I do, or the book of appreciation. And then maybe office tour could be like a third content strategy, so to speak, but otherwise I really make it up as I go. I'll film all day long and probably the same things too often. Then whatever happens throughout the course of a day, I'll try to weave that into the narrative. I stink at answering questions, hence me doing these. I could do a much better job of like organizing my thoughts, but because of how hectic the schedule is at work and how I'm trying to squeeze every minute out of every day, I'm really just winging it for the most part. For anybody that stopped me on the street or that has had a conversation with me about this, I usually at some point say I feel like I have no idea what the hell I'm doing, which is true. I kind of rip it. I'll get into the specifics for a second in case you're curious about the geeky stuff. I try to keep my clips to within 2 to 4 seconds long unless I know in my head, oh, I'm gonna wanna talk about this for about 8 to 10 seconds. I'm long-winded by nature, so it can be very easy for me to take too much footage thinking, oh, I'm totally gonna talk about this. For a while, I was like taking 10 seconds of every single thing I saw throughout the course of a day, and then I had like 15 minutes worth of footage for a 90-second day in the life, and it was maniacal. So now I try to be really intentional, 2 seconds of footage. I'll edit them on the go on my phone just to like tighten up the clip, and then I'll airdrop it to my laptop, put it in iMovie, and then just kind of trim it from there. Vast majority of the time I make up the voiceover on the fly, and I'll do that also on the laptop. Crank it out, put it into TikTok, and there you go. But I feel like there's probably a good hour worth of stuff that I could talk about every day, but I don't. Hence, here's a great example. I just took, what, 3 minutes to answer this question in and of itself, so hopefully that helps. Oh, and last thing I'll say, every day those are new clips. For some reason I like clarifying this and I'm kind of proud of it. Even in like the shower clips, like that is a new shot of me in the shower every day, as weird as that is. I don't like recycling things. I feel like it has to be a very genuine, this is this day. So the time-lapse stuff you see outside my office, like literally everything, it actually happened that day. It is a very rare occasion that I pull something to replace a clip that I didn't have. Then certainly if I can reference something historical, I'll go into the archives to grab that. Tips for people leaders. I have a full one sheet of this in either my website or through the link in my Instagram bio in the career tips and tricks folder. First and foremost, I love having the mentality of knowing everybody goes home at the end of the day and they're probably gonna have a meal, and they're probably gonna have that meal with somebody that they love or a friend, or even if they're by themselves, they're going to reflect on the day. As a people leader, the more often you can put your people in a position where they're going to say today was a good day, that helps in so many capacities. That gets you to think about process, that gets you to think about training, that gets you to think about everything that they're going to touch throughout the course of a day, how much work they have on their plates. No one is going to say that I had a good day when they're consistently bored at work. So I think if you can work towards the goal of having people say today was a good day more often than not, you're being a good people leader. You have to be empathetic, not just in general, but like specifically based off of where people are in their lives and what their needs might be, both from a career and from a life perspective, right? Somebody who's 27 is probably gonna have a completely different mindset and perspective than somebody that's 35 and has kids. I also try to set up the environment so that I could walk away at any given moment and everything would be fine, right? So again, that goes back to how well can you set up the process? How easy can you make everyone's job? I also like thinking about, especially in today's world where you can just swipe to buy stuff, like how user-friendly can everything be that the people that you are managing have at their disposal? A lot of cases you may not be able to impact that, but are there really simple things that you can apply to what they're doing that start to at least bridge some of those gaps? From a compliance perspective, if you're talking about, hey, everybody needs to get their year-end reviews, or hey, everybody needs to, make sure that they fill out that form once a month, those types of things, think creatively along the lines of if you were in their shoes. Things that I have done for compliance purposes are, for the 240 person department, I will block out a chunk of time and be like, I have specifically called a meeting in which we will not actually meet, but you are going to use that time to do X, Y, or Z. Like, if you think creatively along those lines of how can you just, what would be the fun things that you wish somebody had done for you? Start to apply those, think differently about getting people to do the things. And also, this is probably the most important thing that I could say in a quick answer. When I say something 50 times and it's not happening or not resonating, it is my fault. I need to think about how I'm gonna say it differently the 51st time, or how I'm gonna do something different so that it actually happens. When there's lack of compliance, or if things are not, that you are communicating are not actually happening, it is not their fault. It is on the person leader to communicate more clearly, or to do something different that's going to actually get that person to do whatever it is that they need to do. And I guess the final thing I'll say is, think about communication almost like your marketing, right? Think about yourself as like an ongoing campaign of, almost like Geico, right? Like, what's some sort of like simple ways that you can tell a complicated story to get people to pick up the phone, answer their email, whatever it is you're looking to do. If you kind of treat it like you are a marketing campaign, because basically if you're trying to point people in a certain direction and get them to do things to get you to your goals, if you can think about your communication style and how you can implement things almost like a marketing campaign, I think that helps. Can you break down your 24-hour day, like work, gym? I'll break down the full time chunks. 4:02 alarm, 4:10, which is after I've come downstairs, put on my clothes, drank my minted pre-workout. 4:10 to 5 o'clock is always work. At about 5 o'clock, that's when I'll allow myself to start to either make a TikTok or whatever kind of content I need to do, or something miscellaneous. Then I give myself a flex window up until about 5:45 or 6 o'clock at the absolute latest, depending on if it's a Tuesday or Thursday and I have to take our daughter to school. Then walk, gym, home by anywhere between 6:30 and 7:30 at the absolute latest, so that I can get my butt back out the door by 8 o'clock. Hopefully earlier than that, so I can be in the office well before 9 o'clock, hopefully sometime around 8:30. I think when I've done like the full math, because from there it's just like, work all the way up until about 6, home, dinner from 7 to 8, 8 o'clock is snack hour, and 8 o'clock from 8 until about 10 is work, and maybe a little bit of editing or replying to comments, that kind of stuff. I think when I did the full math, it's somewhere in the ballpark of about 14 to 16 hours of work, and then a couple hours of just family time, so to speak, and then a handful of, maybe an hour or so for content or whatever else we got going on. I think that's about the breakdown. And then I sleep for 5.5 hours, 6 hours, something like that. Last question. Is there a reason behind the cold showers? I used to be, I want to say addictive, but addicted is probably strong. I used to love cryotherapy. Did it as much as I possibly could. Cold therapy, I think, is brilliant. We tried cryotherapy a while ago. I thought it was amazing. I loved how I felt. I loved, especially for somebody who played a ton of hockey as a kid, I just feel like it was super rejuvenating, and I felt like for somebody who likes to work out 7 days a week, it was almost like a superpower, because you felt like you could just keep going. The energy was great, the mindfulness was great. When my cryotherapy place, it's by my office, closed down during the pandemic, I have not found one that is easy to get in and out of, because it's really quick. It's 3 minutes, you're in the tube. So as long as you can get there and get out and back to your office in a reasonable period of time, it's very fast and efficient. So I don't have the time to like commute across town or put that into my daily schedule in and out of the city. So I reverted to cold showers. They kind of suck. I mean, the first blast is the worst, but I like the fact, like, I'll stand there sometimes and I'll be like, after this, you're done. meaning that that's the last really hard thing for the day. I've already gotten up early, I've already worked for a little bit, I've already gone to the gym. If once I'm in and out of the shower, then it's like the rest feels like a piece of cake. It's good for inflammation. I think it's good just for me to see if I can will myself to do it on such a consistent basis. I feel good. I mean, I mind that first blast, but even on the coldest days, I still do it. And there's just something about the rigor and the routine. And I'm kind of weird like that these days. Kelly gave this a thumbs up. You guys are amazing for asking questions. Thank you for hanging out in the semi-discombobulated basement. And Ev, come here for a second. I would have you pull my finger, but Mom would get so mad. No, I can't do that down here. Mom would be so mad at me.